Hello everyone, welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. Despite many efforts or very little efforts or no efforts, no one is really contented. Someone will be displeased. You cannot please everyone. But by denying your own path, you are letting yourself down. By letting yourself down, then bitterness comes, disappointment. As you're in the quest for truth, that goal must replace everything else. It must stand higher than anything else. That is where your allegiance must be, despite what others will say. Your focus must be entirely in your quest for truth, in seeing what is needed and making sure it happens immediately, taking care of all details that honor your quest for truth, that honor your path as a seeker of truth, until guidance comes. When guidance comes, then honoring guidance is the only thing you must make sure it happens. Others will be disappointed with you. All of them. I don't want anything else from this world anymore. Not even understanding, not even approval, acceptance, self-worth, none of that. Only freedom. So the quest for truth. So we see these images from seekers in India, of course, of a life devoid of comforts, possessions, all of that. And the Western seeker more or less looks at that and says, ooh, that's too much. But what is this too much? There's a lot of fear in the seekers' minds that they need to take care of themselves. They need to have some sort of security. And that is a problem for them. But for very few, we can say that it is about this fear of helplessness, of having nothing to sustain life in a simple matter. The majority is just, well, attachment to comforts, attachment to possessions, to the sophistications of life. That's it. Attachment to the dreams of the character, where the quest for God plays the role of the ultimate strategy to the gratification of the character's desires. Because it is simple. God takes care of its own. This is an unchanging law. How many seekers of truth, if they were to be face to face with God, and God would tell them, let go all of that. Come with me, I will live with you a simple life. How many would really let go of their lives to be with God? And I'm sure that many would say, of course, immediately. But I can guarantee you that it's not really the case. Unless you were positive, 100% sure it was, and that the benefits would be the gains would be superior to the losses. God takes care of its own. There are those who want God's glories, the best of this world. And God as a glory also. And there are those who want God alone. It is of those last ones that God takes care. Everybody gets what they desire. Everyone gets what they desire, as it is possible. But more or less, that is the way. So those who want God alone, He takes care. Gives them what they need, not what they think they need, what they need. The necessary support for final dissolution. And either you are guiding or He is guiding. Both at the same time doesn't work. Because the character guides favoring his own needs, his perpetual existence. God's guidance is for the disappearance of this character. So they are pushing in opposite directions. So either you guide or God guides. And if you're taking care of your life, of your needs, this will always mean, even if you're completely on a spiritual path, dedicating all your time, but still taking care of your own needs, it means it's not for God only yet. So God takes care is something that goes very deep, that has many, many profound meanings. What comes to the seeker's mind is just the fulfillment. Maybe not the fulfillment, but the absence of fears, that conditions that will be met will not arouse any fears, any normal fears. And it is not the case. As long as you're taking care of your life, you will not see the magic. of God's hand present in your life, blessing you constantly, either with sunshine or storms. Yes, storms are part of the blessings also. You cannot have both. And those who want both, because I've heard this again and again, why can't I have both? Well, you must be very important to have both. But if they are contrary to one another, how can you have both? How can you go right and left at the same time? How can you surrender to disillusion and embrace illusion at the same time? If you're in a serious path and you're a serious seeker, the more you surrender and let go, the more you detach yourself. This is the path to follow. Turning your backs onto God's glories and embracing God alone. Behind all sophistications of spiritual life, this is the main point. Are you for real? Or are you just playing spirituality? Choosing just a different tribe, a different society? Those who cry for God alone and turn their backs to God's glories, they find God eventually. Those who are seeking God for its glories, well, they will find its glories, the glories that are possible for them to see. It can be great, and it can be terrible, or somewhere in between, depending on what you're able to see. But it's glory. All of this is God's glory, so whatever that means. But only God is real. All the rest is just smokes and mirrors. I've heard seekers saying that they have done a lot, and despite their best efforts, nothing else had happened. They haven't felt anything or just a little bit, but nothing tangible. And the answer is obvious. Despite being apparently on the spiritual path, studying philosophy and all of that, they're not seekers of truth yet. They are still VIP seekers. Emperors without a kingdom that are waiting for a kingdom that God will provide. God takes care of its own. But to see this, courage has to be there. We can call it courage or common sense. But to be just common sense, a great deal of faith and devotion has to be there. The more you embrace the world, the more distant you will be from God. The more distance you become from the world, the more closer you'll come to God. It's a simple equation. All the rest it is talked a lot about karma yoga. Karma yoga as a spiritual discipline, doing actions without expecting the fruits from the actions, surrendering the fruits to God. This is a teaching in itself, but usually it's used in a different way. Okay, if it's what's possible, but let's look at it as it is. If that work is not handed to you through guidance, through direct guidance, either from your master or from God, then it is that which you want to do, that which you need to do, according to the needs of that character. And you're enjoying the fruits of it, sweet or bitter, and you are living these ups and downs of the sweet and of the bitter. So it's just child's play. And eventually, working and taking care of your little life, and just making this mental prayer and giving all to God, that is nice, but in a way, eventually, it will bring this reflection to you. What am I doing? If God didn't tell me to do this work, so the need is mine, so it is my work, my needs. So I'm just playing. If these prayers have been sincere, eventually it will dawn in your mind. Independently on which circumstances, either you're living in the world, the normal world, amongst normal people, or in an ashram amongst seekers of truth, Adaptings are made all the time so that you take care of your needs, what you call your needs, and to feed your world. This has to stop if you're on a serious path, or if you want to be on a serious path. You will have to walk on the razor blade. Only this way you can see and experience what you need. Only with that commitment you will feel more and more God's presence. And of course, your mind convinces you of many things, like you're doing what is needed and all of these things, that you are sincere and all of that. Your mind is not there to help you. It is there to maintain distraction. That's its function. If trained, if purified, it can be the guardian of distraction also, not allowing its normal functionings to work. It can, it does, when trained accordingly. Without training, it is there to produce noise. With training, it will be there to maintain silence. Because silence is what can be trusted. So the mind will maintain this silence when trained. All else that's not silence, it's not trustworthy. And it is in silence that you can listen to guidance, not fabricate guidance, not reasoning guidance, not elaborating guidance, but listening to guidance in silence. There's no silence in the presence of afflictions, and there's no absence of afflictions if you're taking care of your life. If you're taking care of your life, you're full of fears, dependencies, weaknesses, and worldly goals. They all come together in the same package. How would it be for you to let go of everything you have in this moment and surrendering completely to God? Just walking away from your life towards emptiness, towards any direction which is opposite to where you stand, seeking God alone. God takes care of its own. And that is the living path. It is from that point that is serious. And it is from that point onwards that God's presence can be felt, can be seen more and more. And from that point onwards, that you'll be transformed completely till the point of dissolution. All the rest is just child's play. Namaste. Who am I? Who are we? Actually. Who am I is the only question. Who are we is just delusion based. Like there are multiple I's. But I don't usually talk about this because, well, for those who are in the quest for truth for some time, they know about these answers intellectually. So this is known. And if it is beginners, well, because either you have the calling for realization, for self-realization, for realizing this answer, to find out this answer. It is not an intellectual answer as it can be seen as the intellectual question. And it is the goal of existence, whatever that means. So these theoretical concepts, I don't talk about them. At least not as concepts, of course. You can find this very easily. The answers are: you are God, you are truth, you are omnipotent, you are infinite being. But what's the use of this? If you don't have the calling, this will not add anything. If you have the calling, this will solve nothing. The path has to be made in the same way. One thing is for sure, from the source of that calling is also the realization of that calling, the satisfaction of that calling. Same source. Yes, I knew the answer. I wanted to hear you saying about this question. Yes. Most know about the answer, intellectually at least, and they know a lot of things intellectually also. And this is what I was talking about. You need to understand that Every spiritual teaching has its fundamental, as something which is beyond the intellectual scope. And as you are judging and evaluating, you will not experience it, not fully, of course, only just little bits. But seekers tend to choose the teachings that they find more suitable, instead of surrendering to the teachings that come to them. And so they continue to be their own limitation. Renunciation with surrender is the path to God, the path to truth. And I say, I'm repeating more and more this word God, because from the perspective of wisdom, many philosophies don't even talk about God. They talk about truth. They talk about identity, who am I? But from the point of view of seekers, and let me just make just going back a little bit, even those who expound these philosophies from the point of view of wisdom, they don't neglect God and they pay their respects. And it is about God that they are talking, but from a different view. But modern seekers, they talk about the same, but as a disrespect, or how do you say? The word's not coming. It's not really disrespect. Neglect, not neglect also. But like not considering, not understanding even why God is there and what's its purpose. It's like you're drowning in the sea and there's a ladder beside you. And you're drowning and you just want to go over the boat, which is too far. Not understanding that that ladder is a part of the boat, is the boat itself. But you just want the boat. And you just continue to drown without reaching the ladder, ignoring the ladder. The ladder has no problem with that. But you're the one who drowns. And these days, seekers talk about ultimate reality without 1 ounce of devotion. And what that breeds? Just emptiness, suffering, of course. And even to hear about God, oh no, that's how is the truth? The word, something that has passed, has no meaning. Now, the vision is much. They have gone beyond this. That is still dual, a dual aspect. No, it's not. and they don't like to hear the word God because it is connected to traditions and this and that and bad things. People are connected to bad things, not God. And what people do in its name, not God. But as you grab that ladder and you push, the ladder is firm. It will sustain your weight no matter how heavy you are. And if you push more, you start rising from the water. That's the point of the ladder. Because if you just hold if you just hold the ladder and remain on water trying to float, to enjoy water now that you're not drowning, the ladder disappears. So the time that you are using, if you're using all your time towards God, then it is possible. It is. Well, it's a matter of time only. But if you're using your time to take care of your life, your dreams, and also spirituality and this and that, well, that cannot go very far. Your experience is the proof out of it. Philosophies, yoga philosophy tells you, used to say to the hardened seekers, the thirsty seekers that want it for now, it would say, look, it takes time. It can't even take more than one lifetime. And this, for the hardened seeker, this would help him to control this wildness of his thirst. That was the intent. And when it is high and stable, then things go very fast. But to be high and stable, the thirst must remain, the intensity of it must remain, the efforts must remain, but the capacity to wait also has to be there. To wait all that long even. So these teachings were for the hardened seekers. The modern seekers look at this teaching and says, oh, it takes a long time, so let me do some other things. At the same time, let me enjoy a little bit of this and that, because it takes time. Well, the seeker of truth looks at the same teaching and says, well, if it takes time, so I better hurry, because the more time I waste, the longer it will take. So different visions from the same teaching. If the thirst is there, if it's a real seeker of truth, knowing that it takes time, will make him undoubtedly just use as much time as he has, not wasting it. If it's not really a seeker of truth, well, then he will do some other stuff. Vou responder à tua pergunta. So there's a question here that I will translate to English. I was wondering about freedom and control hearing you speak. I understood that control is the root of illusion, where the mind, the I, looks for meaning, agrees or disagrees all the time about everything. Freedom is that will of expansion, of limited expansion that comes into human being. They are not the inanimates, how do you say this? Inanimated things that I should worry in delusion, but the intrinsic and natural will of expanding. Well, freedom is truth. It's not the will to expand constantly or limitlessly. That can be, that desire, that will to expand limitlessly, can be the desire for freedom, not freedom itself. But for sure, this question here, it's not the things that are not animated. I'm not sure if the word in English is inanimated. Not sure. But those things that are not animated, they are of no concern. It is this natural intrinsic will to expand continuously. Well, I will take this natural will to expand continuously as in the sense of expanding on worldly desires and worldly goals. I will take it this way, or else it wouldn't be, how do you say this? So here we can see clearly a protection in place. It's not the things that are not animated. What is this? Possessions. So it's not the possessions that we need to worry about. Let us not worry about, because I'm attached to them. I don't want to let go of them. So I'll interpret this as this has no problem. So whatever I have, this is not a problem. If I want to have more, this is the problem. So there's a protectionism into the things that are not animated possessions. So like I was saying, this interpretation, if you're taking care of your life, well, reasonings have to be yours. And it is as it is because, well, you're not forced into freedom. It is a blessing to even think about freedom, to aspire for freedom, and even a bigger blessing to give the necessary steps towards it. This is why guidance comes after, because this quest for freedom is yours. The calling may be there, but answering or not, this is up to you. It has to be sincere. But if you have all this and still you're taking care of your life instead of surrendering, well, that means mind is in control. And the reasonings that will come, it is always about protecting your illusion. Always. The mind then is used as a different tool. First it protects attachments, then it burns them. Oh, I'm attached to this, poof, go into the fire. And let's see what happens. After it is trained, then it becomes a very important tool. Before that, not trustworthy. Well, it can be trustworthy in the sense that whatever you're reasoning, you know it's the opposite way. And you can see by the reasoning what you are protecting, what is still more important, and what needs to go. From seeing what you are trying to protect, what you're trying to hold on to, what it still reveals as more important behind those reasonings. So even that is useful. Your fears and your attachments, these are holding you back. These are making you invest in illusion. These are separating you from truth, from God, from your real self. So these are the first things that are thrown into the fire. And what will happen to you? Well, you'll have to find out. And it is when you do that, that you really find out and you start seeing the magic of God's hand everywhere. With humility, of course, because like I said, you'll get what you need, not what you think you need. And what you need, according to your character, what you need is good things, protection, love, care, all of these things. But what you really need, it's not necessarily like that. Sweet and bitter are very important, both very important into the quest for truth. So you need to look to both in a thankful way, thanking for the blessings. Okay. So that's it for today. Next satsang will be Saturday, 9:30 a.m. in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, make the best use of your time. Make it real. Make it real. You see, just an extra, just a comment. These days, for many seekers, the stories of freedom that are more appealing is some sort of, oh, this seeker was in his couch watching a nice movie and eating popcorn, and suddenly, out of nowhere, with no effort whatsoever attached to it, bang, he got enlightened. That is the best story for the majority of seekers these days. It doesn't seem inspiring at all. And how many of these stories have survived time? How many? Because truth has to stand time. So these stories are just for avid consumers that need to find a product that fits their pocket. That means what they are willing to pay. But the quest for truth is alive and has nothing to do with these things. It is about transcending the laws of nature, what seems normal, what flows, transcending them, sometimes reversing them, swimming against a strong current with all the hardships involved. The quest for truth is an epic. Is your life an epic? Is your quest for truth an epic? Okay.